Hello, Kathy. How are you? Thank you so
Hi,
much for being here
Lorissa.
today.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you making the time in your busy schedule. You are a mother, which in my book always comes first. And you are also the Chief Digital and Innovation Officer at Hoag. Did I get that correctly?
That's right.
Okay, perfect. Love it. So I'm very excited to have you here today. I have been a part of the Hoag Compass program now for a few months, and the not only just the results that I've seen personally and my own physical and mental and overall well-being, the experience that I've had, but more so the feedback from people who, I mean, obviously I've been talking about Hoag Compass, and then I have people come to me who, who they've tried it and they're like, this is the best thing. I have never experienced something like this. So I do want to talk a lot about that and kind of what it is and how it came about and what it means, because for my audience and people who have been following me for a while or listening in, they hear me talk about Hoag Compass all the time.
Mhm.
And so I would love to hear from your perspective, because I hear from my perspective, but I'd love to hear from your perspective. Maybe we go back to the very beginning of kind of concept, where this came about, why maybe you felt there was a need, or did you I'm curious when you came into the process, because I feel like you kind of came into the Hope Compass process very early on, right? Kind of like at
Mhm.
creation or maybe just
Yep.
after creation.
Creation. I'm ideation all the way to putting it out in the market. So I
Oh
can
my
share
gosh,
a little
even
bit about
better. So,
this.
yes, I would love to hear. I mean, and even for me, because I don't know, I'm like
Yeah.
so invested in Hope Compass, but I'd love to hear that from you and kind of where did this need come from? Was there some sort of like pivotal moment or something that you saw in the market or in healthcare or in wellness or whatnot? Any gaps? And then kind of take us through that and then to what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. Compass started way back in terms of an idea, and it kind of pairs with the history of me coming to Hoag a little bit. So I'll give you a little bit of insight. So pre-healthcare, I was in financial services. I was actually at American Express, and I'm from New York. So
Mhm.
moving to Orange County and taking this role on was a big shift because I had not done healthcare in past. And what I came in to do was lead a digital practice. And the role scope when I took it on, and it's been 4.5 years now,
Okay.
since I've joined. So when I started, it was a full open white space, right? It was like, hey, we need a digital practice, we need a platform. What do we do, and how do we think about digital health for Hoag, and what should we think about for healthcare? And
So
funnily
I want
enough,
to pause you there. When you
yeah,
say digital practice, meaning virtual?
virtual, how you might access, think about your day-to-day life, right? You pick up your phone, you text something in, you look for availability in a restaurant, very easily you can book that. You're not dealing with phones and humans all the time for the basic
Mhm.
things you might be doing. And then all the way to what you're experiencing with Compass, it's like, what are the new models of care that we need to think about where virtual and or frictionless use cases come up? That's where
Mhm.
technology can play a role. And so it started there with like, what do we do and how do we address this market? And so I was employee zero. I came in chief digital officer, and it sounded great and all, but then I was like, what is going on? Because healthcare is like super complex and it is nothing like any other industry. And so started to recruit team in. We started ideating, looking at the market. We started with research, like where is healthcare going? What generationally is going to be different, right? Because what we learned in the data is a lot of healthcare from a systems perspective, like when you think about hospital systems or any of that, it's really baked into people with chronic conditions. They make up the lion's share of who's using these types of systems. And when you look at what a population that considers themselves like, hey, I don't have a chronic condition, etc., we were finding very interesting stats, like 40% of the nation doesn't even use primary care. Certain demographics just look at an urgent care, and that's about it if something comes up. But when they think about being healthy, they weren't looking at that medium as the place to go. Instead, they were looking at apps, they were looking at, influencers blogging, they're looking at doctors who are giving advice on, the internet or being Dr. Google. They were going there first more than anything else. And so we did a lot of research. We brought in a design firm called Frog because, we're a super small team at that point, and really went heavy in understanding what does Orange County need, right? We started there. And we also looked at national data. We did research with customers. We brought them in. And what I love about Compass is that's how it started. It was a co-creation exercise, right? It wasn't the traditional like, oh, we need a virtual tool and we just did one. It was,
Mhm.
what do we do? And can we build a product in healthcare like another industry would build? Meaning you start with this minimal viable concept, you get a nugget from the customer, you build something to that, and you test into it and iterate that product. And over time, we really get something out in the market that's impacting health. Like the goal wasn't just to follow the trend and get a virtual product out. The goal was, what should this become to actually impact a new type of care model in the market, right?
Mhm.
So it started there, lots of research. We spent time thinking through what would it need to be. And where we landed was the first version of Compass. We heard deeply that we needed to build something that would be physical, but also allow for virtual and digital, right? And the virtual piece is like, I want to be able to see the doctor physically and or virtually, depending on what I need. The digital side was, I need some medium to make this really accessible and easy to do, right? Like I want to be able to message a care team. I want to be able to not, send an email and wait 48 hours. I want something that feels a lot more like when I text message, right? So you started to hear all of these nuggets. So what we did is we took a site, right? Hoag, it was an amazing experience for me coming in because Robert Braithwaite, our CEO, gave us this opportunity to say, okay, we're going to take a part of a site, an actual physical location, and we're going to design that ground up. We're going to build a digital product, so the mobile app, the web experience, etc. And we're going to start this whole different model. And we got to co-create that, leveraging customer insight. So the first version kind of landed in really adapting to that physical, virtual, digital experience. How do we build something like that? And we also brought in some lifestyle portions to it because our goal was not just to deal with all the chronic conditions and sick care. The
Mhm.
goal was really to get upper in the funnel, start thinking about preventative medicine. So I'll pause
Mhm.
there. That's kind of how it started. And then I can tell you a little bit about the journey it's been to where we are. The product's a solid 3-year-old product. So 3 years later, where are we now?
Yeah, even in just that you just shared is so relevant and insightful because you said so many things. One, traditionally, and I'm a person who really cares about my health and wellness and just overall well-being, my mental, physical, all of that, my sleep, how that all plays into each other. But a lot of people aren't like that, but they care about their health, but when they think hospital or doctor, they just think I just go there when I'm sick. They don't think of it as, they certainly don't think of it preventative. And so, like you're saying, people are kind of doing their own, oh, you're intermittent fasting. Oh, my neighbor, like I literally will hear
Yeah.
like, oh, my neighbor's doing keto, so I'm going to do keto with her. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't
Sure.
know if it works that way, but
Yeah.
that's kind of how it is because people, and I don't know, for whatever reason, we're kind of conditioned to think, oh, we go to the doctor when we're sick. We don't
Yeah.
go to the doctor just to check up on our health and well-being. And similarly, one of the things that I love about Compass is people are like, I mean, if you think about, okay, I got to call, I got to get an appointment with a doctor. I don't even know if this is a big deal or not. I kind of want to just, maybe it's fine, maybe it's not. I'm not going to take the day, take time out of my day to call and
Mhm.
go schedule and da 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 and do all these things. And I'm speaking obviously from my own personal experience, but from what I see from my husband's like, oh, my back's been hurting me forever, but I don't have time to go da da da, and it could be
Yeah.
nothing. And you know what I mean? It's like we go through all of these things. And for me, when I think about, well, and I'll let you share more into the Compass program, but just off of what you're speaking, even those little, they're not little, but like even just those kind of like foundational elements of what Compass is and what the program is night and day from, I think, what people think of like traditional healthcare. And I even was a person who, prior to Hoag Compass, you get like a form. It's like, who's your primary doctor? I'm like, I don't know. I can't even think of the last time
Yeah.
that I went to a primary doctor. So
Mhm.
I think even in just those like key foundational, okay, we need to make it digital, virtual, but also having the opportunity. And I've been obviously to the Hoag Compass Irvine office, which is beautiful. It's immaculate. Having those opportunities, but making it more accessible and kind of changing the way that people think about healthcare. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm so sick and I'm dying, I need to go to the doctor. There's a longevity and like a lifestyle play that comes into wellness and well-being that we shouldn't be waiting. And I'm sure you'll talk about this, but for me and my family, so we shouldn't be waiting until like, oh my gosh, my back hurts so bad. What
Yeah.
could it be? We should be doing things proactively and
Yeah.
preventatively to not get to that point. And we as a society, I don't think thinks about healthcare in that way. Like I think we're starting to get there, but it's
Yeah.
not common knowledge,
Yeah.
certainly.
For sure. And I think, to what you said, the goal of Compass, it's evolved, right? So we started in this place of this convenience, how people want to interact with care. We have to make it a lot more easy to start to debunk a bit of only come to me when things are really bad. And what you
Mm-hmm.
find is people are waiting for that moment because they find it so hard to interact with healthcare. So they're like, I'm only going to go there unless I really, really have to, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that is a lot of people think that way. And you look at the data in the industry, primary care, to your point, I've not had a primary care doctor. Maybe, when I graduated college, my parents told me like, you should get a primary care doctor. And I tried that out. And then I was like, what is that? And then, and then,
Yeah,
and then
doesn't
I don't,
stick or
yeah,
you kind of
no, and
forget
I'm
about it.
into
Yeah.
all of the other things. Like I am online looking at what's current. I signed up for things like Maven and I was testing all these things. And I'm like, the challenge with some of those things on the market, I'll be honest, from my purview, what ends up happening, it's they don't have as much clinical efficacy. So sometimes you get on it and they're giving you advice and you're like, do I really need to take 12 supplements now? Like, what, shouldn't I just like eat
Mhm.
real, like, you have these like mental moments of like, okay, there's the consumer market and what's happening with it, with health and preventative wellness, and there's so much of it feels like, is there real clinical efficacy in some of the things being suggested? So I started to get this feeling of like, okay, well, I haven't really found my sweet spot yet in what's going to work. And if I put the women's health layer on top of all of this, it like blows it up a little bit, right? And I can talk a little bit of how we're thinking about that, not only with Compass, but other things that we're building and working through. But from a Compass lens, so we started in this very like, let's really think about convenience and virtual play, the accessibility, while starting to touch into preventative wellness, right? Let's start to bleed into that. And as we built the product, we launched it. I will tell you that launch was probably the craziest because I went and had a baby while it was happening.
Oh
And I cannot
man.
tell you, there's days where I'm like, I think I still have some PTSD from that time period
I
because
bet.
product launch in healthcare, I had to be out for a period of, I think I shortened it as best I could, but I was out for a pocket and I came back to like our opening day and it was just like, talk about shaking in your boots, trying to bring something live into the public.
Wow.
Anyhow, we went through our trials and tribulations, but we started learning and we learned, yeah, what you said, some of the table stake things, the convenience of this platform needed to be a core. Like people want to be able to get onto the video if they need to quickly. They want very quick responses to questions. They want to feel like they have a health companion almost, not just a person that's checking whether I have, a cold or I'm not feeling well. They just want to know, even when I'm feeling my best, they want to also feel like somebody's keeping track of that. And what you find with like, I have an Apple Watch on, I wear the Aura ring, the accountability aspect is really hard for people, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't know, my watch will say sometimes, time to stand, time to breathe. but I can easily ignore that. I feel like it's really harder. It's much harder to ignore a human that calls you up or texts you and say, hey, Lorissa, did you remember to do this thing we talked about? And then suddenly there's like a person that I'm now accountable to. And we saw that
Yes,
that shift really helped people, right? It couldn't
absolutely.
just be technology centric. Um, and so we evolved the product. And where I would say 3 years later, and this is really coming, I will say this is one of the products that I feel good about, that the team has spent time with the customer. Like we really leaned into that narrative to know what do we need to put on the market. And where we are now is much more health span longevity centric, right? We are actively looking at, you'll see all the products out there, 100 plus biomarkers, and we test everything and we look at your gut. But we also believe that we want to work with really strong healthcare professionals to say what's valid and what actually is of high, high would bring high efficacy. Like let's say I tell somebody this test result or this biomarker, you should really be thinking about it. Is that really real, or is it just playing on the market trend of, well, everyone thinks more is better, like, oh, you're testing 100 things versus this guy's testing 40 things. I don't think that's the carrot at all, is for what you should be measuring whether you're getting a good preventative wellness experience. I think what you should be looking for are, out of those 100, those 200, whatever everyone's testing, which ones are the real, like which ones really, if I focus on it and I optimized on it, I would have a better result for my own health, right? And I
Well,
think,
and how
yeah.
how to identify those, and then
Hmm.
also what to do with that information. Because
Correct.
I've done stuff in the past where I'm like, when I was trying to get pregnant with my first baby, it was like, we're going to do all this blood work and all this testing. Here's pages and pages and pages of stuff. And you need to cut out all of these foods. And for me, it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'll do it because I want to have a baby. But then I'm like, that one's not really realistic. Or is that one the most important? Or is that one the most important? Where for me, and I'm speaking now to my experience with Compass, it's like, okay, I got all this information. But then I have people who are saying, okay, this one's really important,
Yeah.
this one you can kind of work on, or where does this one fit into your lifestyle? Like we can navigate this one by literally adding in 20 minutes of walking every evening. Is that doable for you? I'm like, totally doable. So now it feels less daunting because
Yeah.
now I'm feeling like I have actually tangible, that was one for me. They're like, you need to walk after you eat dinner. I'm like, okay, great. But then it just becomes more tangible versus you've given all this information, and now what do I do with it? And how do I implement into my lifestyle? And I feel like that's also the issue with so many of these like crash diets or trends or fad, diets and things.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you do it and then you're going to stop. You're not going to do that forever, So
No.
taking this information and turning it into a lifestyle where it makes sense
Yep.
and where you can actually implement these things, and you see it, you feel better, and it's like,
Yep.
okay, I know what I shouldn't eat, but if I do eat that, here's maybe the time of day that I should do it or what I should pair it with or whatnot. So giving real life things as well, like what you're saying, it's not just like, oh, here's 1,000 things about yourself. Okay, great, thanks. But now how do I take that into my life and make it, and really optimize my
Yeah, what do
well-being,
you
which I
do
think,
with this info? What does it
what do you do
mean
with
for
this stuff?
me as an
Yeah.
individual, right? And I think so if you chunk it out, where the product Compass is now, is we do test more because there are some things that we should be doing beyond what you get in your annual visit that we believe in. When you think about longevity, health span, and wanting to, who doesn't want 10 more healthy years? It's not just about 10 more years, right? Because 10 more years, if you're suffering in it, probably people
Miserable
don't
years.
want
Yeah.
that. But 10 more years where you're active, you're doing things for yourself, you're healthy, you're moving, you're sleeping, you are a whole person that can still perform and do what you need to. That's a very different carrot, right?
Mhm.
So there's, yeah, testing, we look at that, but that's only one thing, right? To your point, now you get all these results back. What do I do? And then what do I do knowing my behavior? Because I'm like you, I don't have a lot of time. And I will tell you, I went through the program myself and I walked away with 3 things that I could do. And I kid you not, after a year of just doing those 3 small things, I did feel better. Now, I don't
Mhm.
know if it solved every problem I have. I'm not saying it did, but I felt myself feeling better. I had a little bit more
Yes.
energy. I felt things that people said that would happen, like the doctor, et cetera. And the care team, what they told me would happen, I started to feel those things. I would get up in the morning and I wouldn't snooze the clock anymore. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't hit snooze. And I thought that was like a game changer because I've been on I'm from, I was working in New York City. It was just like go, go, go all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd wake up tired. You go to sleep tired, you wake up tired. I remember that era. And I just three simple things that I changed in my whole pattern of behavior, which is something I can manage, but I cannot manage a list of 50 things. I
Totally.
cannot manage, oh, the grocery list has to be this specific and I have to just do this one thing in the morning and I have to cook the meal this exact same way. Like I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old at home and work. There's just no way, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens to most people is you'll try, right? You'll give it your best effort and then you fall off the train because it was never given to you in a way where it can be integrated into the way I'm living or the way my
Exactly.
schedule works. And
Exactly.
so that point you made, it's like, yeah, the testing, yeah, the results. It really comes down to taking all of that and saying, what can Kathy or Larissa do for based on who they are as individuals, and we can help them optimize what they can, but it's not going to look the same for everybody at all, right?
Mhm.
And one step further, the pillars that we really believed have and to be honest, you're reading all this stuff out there, but it comes down to three things, right? It's are you getting movement, exercise? Are you eating the right things? And not just eating the right things, but is it nutrient rich food that you're putting in your
Mhm.
body at times? That doesn't mean every meal has to be so prescriptive, but are you bringing that into your lifestyle? And mental health, we people don't talk about mental health enough. Forget all the blood tests, just that pillar alone, your brain, stress, sleep, it has such a huge impact on people's well-being. And now I'm one of those people where we are, everyone on our team, we're building, but we're using the things we build, right? Which is really good because we get to say, is it working? Is it not? And I believe in that. We're not trying to put product or a care model out that just gets picked up because, oh, look, they're doing that thing. We're trying to bring care model in that is primed for a generation that wants a
Mhm.
different version of healthcare, and I want the clinical efficacy of what all these physicians know to make its way into preventative thinking, because it's not just when, you know, my sickness got so bad, now I'm going to show up at the doctor. These doctors have a
Yeah.
wealth of knowledge. So how do we package that in a way that is not just about those, critical sick moments? And so that's where kind of Compass has leaned into heavily.
Mhm.
And for me, it's been an exciting journey because we went from like year one, where we're like, we got parts of it right, we got parts of it all wrong. And now we're in a place where every time we talk to someone that's on it, we get similar feedback, like what you've just shared with us, right? Which is like, I feel like this is actually something I'm able to do. And it's not just about when I'm not feeling well anymore. And
Yeah.
to me, those are two really important nuggets, right?
Totally.
Take away from
I
it.
I see this, and I think I was talking with you about this when I saw you at the event, but I've shared this with other folks at Compass. And maybe it's just because it's top of mind because I'm about to have baby number 3 in less than 3 years. But when I came out of like after having birth or giving birth to my 2 sons, you come out of that, your mental health is all over the place. Your physical, like your body and just the body that you're in, isn't the body that you're used to. It's not the body that you were in for 9 months. It's not the
Yeah.
body before that.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of figuring out, okay, what do I eat? How do I regulate my hormones? How do I do all this stuff? And you kind of get information from so many different people because everyone's journey in that is so different. I fortunately have never experienced postpartum depression, but I have friends who have suffered severely. So I can't give you advice and you can't give me, you know what I mean? It's like so specific. Maybe your baby sleeps and my baby doesn't sleep or what have you. And then we go into talking about sleep and where that plays into all of this. And
Yeah.
to me, I'm so excited for the Compass I mean, I'm in the Compass program, but one of the things that I like about it too is like kind of level setting after I have this baby. Okay, now I'm kind of at a different point than I was when I started Compass. The history is there. And so obviously like the care and all of that is there. You know, you've done my DNA, you kind of know where I sit, but now I'm at a little bit a different, not a little bit, a bit different life point. And so I think I'm curious to see kind of like how I incorporate Hoag Compass into my postpartum journey, because I think it can be super beneficial, because I don't know anything else that where it's kind of, I know comprehensive is like a buzzword, but truly comprehensive of like hitting all
Yeah.
these pillars of postpartum in one place, where it's nutrition, mental, physical well-being, different things that you can do for your body specifically to help you recover. So I'm super excited. Like the second
Yeah.
this baby's out, I'm like, okay, I need to like
Yeah.
re-compass, like kickstart my compass. Cause I
Yeah.
think
And I think
I don't know
it'll
anything
be,
else like it.
yeah, no, I think it'll be great because you can, one, congratulations again. I think
Thank
I
you.
mentioned it when we met at the event, but, as from when after you have that baby, but part of you is like trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I function in general? You almost feel like you're coming into a whole new era, right?
Mhm.
Post giving birth, because now there's all of these other things that start to float in your head. Yeah, what should I eat now that I've had the
Yeah.
baby to start to rebuild my immunity, my system? And when can I start exercising again? And what is the right ones to do? And all of these things happen, right? And I think having now the great news for you is you've been on the product. There's a history built already a little bit for you too. And some of the hard work of understanding some of your behaviors, right? And patterns, and hey, Lorissa is more prone to actually adapting to versus I'm not, I might try it, but then I'll fall off the bandwagon.
Yes.
Now that care team is able to even get ahead of it, to start thinking, oh, you're having a baby, like how should we be helping you as you get out of that, right?
Mhm.
And think about that. Imagine you have this baby, and it's not just about, because in traditionally, right, what would happen? You'd have the baby, and then you'd go for the 8-week checkup, right? Or the 6-week checkup. I forget, thankfully I'm forgetting, but
Yes.
you go for that checkup, and they check you, and what do? They just check the uterus area and how
Yeah.
you feel, and
You're
if you're
good.
feeling any symptoms of, like, depression postpartum. I had a version of it.
Mm.
I've had stories of friends that had way worse, but even that part that I had, I was like, oh my goodness, like we should really be having different dialogue about what women's health looks like in general, because it is
Mhm.
very, very, like, you just had a baby, you just created a human life, like, of course it was taxing in so many different ways, right? But to bring it full circle, it's like you get that checkup and then you go on your way, right? And how great would it be that you have this baby and you have a care team that's not about just let me check, you as a woman physically, and just ask you a few questions about a mental state, but actually say, here's how we're going to get ahead of all that.
Mhm.
Here's how we're going to
Yeah.
help you get back to you. We know the female body, it'll take you 2 years to truly heal. Doesn't matter if you on the outside physically you get back to certain thing. It takes about 2 years for that full ecosystem to heal after having a child. And
Mhm.
so how is your care team being proactive about that thinking? And so that's part of what I love about the product. That said, I'll use it as a segue for you. I don't know, no pressure, of course, but if you are having your baby at Hoag,
I
um,
am.
oh, amazing. We
Yeah.
built another product, which you probably don't have exposure to yet, but it's called Nona. And that's like one of the
Okay.
products that I'm just as excited about. And
Okay.
the product is for moms from pregnancy all the way through delivery. And what we do is we stitch you up with, in the pre side, we have L&D type nurses. Backgrounds are like pediatrics, nursing, lactation consultants, specialists. And what they do is they can answer questions pre giving birth, all about your Hoag experience. They postpartum, they can answer all the questions you might have about, and I know this is your third in a short time, so maybe you might not need some of this, but there's other things that might come up. Every child's different, who knows?
Mhm.
We
Absolutely.
provide lactation support. We provide, mother baby questions and answers. We connect you into the funnel here at Hoag. If you do need
Wow.
things, we give recommendation on pediatricians. Like all of this stuff is
Amazing.
connected.
Nona,
Yeah,
Nona.
Nona. And
Okay.
that product, we've just been talking about it, and we have so many moms on it, and they all rave in terms of they don't have anything like that. Most times you get a baby app and it's like what to expect or something like that, right? It's like informative, article forward. This is very much different. This is about, you need advice very different depending on your situation, right? And sometimes you read the
Yes.
article, but you still have more questions. So we do have content there, but the content is authored and written by our For Her Wellness team and physicians that
Mhm.
do labor and delivery here at Hoag. So it's a
Amazing.
take deeper, and I would recommend it. It's a free product to moms that are giving birth here. There's no fee
That's
or anything.
amazing. Yeah, I didn't know about that. Okay, Nona. A lot
Yep.
of moms that are listening to this I know, are going to give birth at Hoag, Newport, or
Yeah. So
Irvine, or whatever. So
no, yeah.
check it
And so to
out.
your
Yeah.
point, I'm thinking about how does that connect to Compass, right? And is it someday in the future, do we or could we have a women's health track for women's health care peered into that product, right?
That would
And I
be
could start to see it extend not only from after you've had a baby, but think about women who are dealing with menopause potentially. Like, could we
oh,
go into
absolutely.
that space with something that is more accessible and convenient, that's thinking about your hormones, your estrogen levels, like not just about what we hear in more traditional paths, like, and I think that's the big piece for me that's been compelling with what we're doing on the digital side, is trying to get a lot more personalized with everything that we
Yeah.
do. So yeah, so that's a product I would, I'll use it.
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's not a
awesome.
plug at all because it's free, anyone can kind of access it, but I
Yeah,
think
why not?
it's doing incredibly well in helping moms. We've heard that feedback over and over again.
Yeah, that sounds really great. This is just I'm gonna go backwards a little bit. So I'm a researcher. It's just like what I like to do. So I had been researching after my second baby, countries with the lowest rates of postpartum anxiety and depression and fastest healing and all that. So there's two that stick out. Two outliers is Singapore and Malaysia, with their depression rate is like around 3%. Whereas if we look at the United States, it's like upwards of like 20-25%. So I had done some research, like what do these countries do differently than the
Mhm.
others? And one common theme is treating food as medicine. So
Yeah.
they very heavily focus on food and what the mom eats, and all of that, which I think is interesting for postpartum recovery. But I do think it's a big part of just anyone in general lifestyle. And so I want to go back a bit. So for someone who's listening, there are going to be people who know what Hoag is and kind of what it entails. Can you just give a quick, from your perspective, because I do talk about like, okay, you get your nutritionist, you get your care team, you get from your perspective, just a quick, like, what are the different facets of Compass? Like if you sign up for Hoag Compass, here are the different people kind of on your team. I think that'd be
Yeah.
helpful for
Yeah,
someone
no,
listening
absolutely.
who has no idea what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
no. And food as medicine, it's so interesting because I'm South American born, and I lived, I was in South America till I was like 15. We migrated to the US and we're in New
So
York for that majority of time.
you're going to
And
talk about this? My mom's from Bolivia.
I don't think so. No, you didn't say that.
Okay, I
No.
didn't know you were South American. Okay.
Yes, I am. And so growing up, I remember you get sick and my grandmother would be like, oh, I'm making you spinach or I'm making you barley soup or something like that.
Yep.
Right? It was never like they wouldn't go to the medicine cabinet right off the bat. They would start pumping your body with all this other types of food, right? As a young kid, I was drinking tea. Like I remember that, right? Growing up
Yes.
that way. And so
Yes.
it's such an interesting, because I do think other countries and cultures, right? They do put a heavy precedent on food and what nutrients you're putting in your body. And I do think in America, while people talk about it a lot, we have so much more processed things that are just so much more easier for people to grab onto. And
Mhm.
it's a product of what America a little bit is in terms of the speed at which we're doing things, the busy
Yes.
that we all are, right? It's not just, it wasn't designed that way intentionally. I don't think so. I think it just happened by a product of how we're living, right? So,
Absolutely.
it's like when you go to Spain, you see everybody taking siestas for 2 hours a day after, and you're like, I want that. Like,
We
there's
like kind of
no
laugh
such
about it. Or in France, it's like, I want an afternoon, not that this is the healthiest thing, but I want to have a sit and chat and have an espresso or a glass of wine with my friend. I'm
Yeah,
like,
and it's
our
so
mental health would
normal.
be thriving. Like
Yeah,
we would
it's
be
so normal, right? To be
free.
chilled
Yeah.
out and just go at a slower pace. Or, even let's speak about it, like maternity leave. America to me has like one of the worst policies in some ways,
Yeah.
right? And such an amazing country, but then we're still have
Yes.
so many gaps that you think
Yeah.
about. And I remember when I was having a baby, I was at American Express my first, and I had a colleague in the UK and she was having her first. And in the UK, the policy is 12 months. You get a year off. And in the
As
US,
you I
at
mean,
that
you
point,
could be nursing for that long, you know?
yeah, you could, if you
Your
want to
body's still
breastfeed,
regulating
yeah,
for
exactly.
that long.
Bond with
Yeah.
your child. Like, oh, anyhow, I could go on about that topic,
I was
but
gonna say that we can have a whole
we can
separate
have a whole dialogue on that.
episode
But
on that.
coming full circle, the food is medicine thing, it's interesting that we're calling it that, but it's always been nutrition's always it has always been very, very important into you optimizing yourself or healing yourself or in terms of preventative well-being. It's always been that, but now we're terming it this. And so with Compass, you know, you could call it food as medicine, you could call it nutrition, whatever you want to call it. But we have a coach that if this is a pillar that you're interested in, they can work with you on those particular elements.
Mhm.
And the product, just so you know, Lorissa, I don't know how much the team has shared. We're having some changes on the product because we're obviously we're iterating good changes because things we've learned from our base is saying they want some additive things, they want some different
Mm.
tiering, all of that. So the
Okay.
coaching pillar kind of has three parts. It's going to be nutrition, exercise, and mental well-being. And the reason I say mental well-being is because it could just be you need to learn how to, you know, do breathing to have you're having a high stress moment. How do you take it down a notch? Like people have these things just happen and they think it's normal. They're not. That's not normal.
Yes.
You need tools and mechanisms to deal with those things. And
I had
so the
that, and
coaching,
they asked me at first, they were like, "How's your mental health?" I was like, "Great, I'm the happiest person I know. I'm, like, thriving, I love life, I
yeah,
wake up every day, I sleep well." They were like, "Okay, well, how do you feel about work?" And I'm like, ooh, this is back when I was at my corporate job,
yeah,
and I said, "I get worked up, like, it, like, consumes me." And they were like, "Okay, well, we're gonna work on taking, even if it's 2 minutes before and after every call that you do, every meeting, every presentation, to just sit. Just take 2 minutes and be in your headspace,
yeah. Versus
and that
just
helps me
rushing to the
so much."
next thing.
Instead of just like, okay, I'm going, going, going. So
Yeah,
even that, I'm like, that was so great for my mental well-being, just to give
yeah.
myself like little pauses like that I
Just a
never do.
little
You know,
pause, clear your
corporate America,
mind.
you're like,
You
go, go, go,
know.
go, go. Like my clients aren't gonna wait for me. It's like, well, okay, well, they kind of will. Like 2 minutes is gonna be okay. So, anyways, just throwing it out for
No,
the people who,
true, right?
because when
So
you
what
think
we've
about
learned in the
mental
product
well-being,
is,
you think like, oh, I'm not depressed or I'm not anxious or whatever, but it doesn't have to be that big. It can literally just be like little things. I mean, sometimes it is that big, but for me, where I'm like, no, 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 I'm totally fine. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, if I really think about it, taking those 2 minute little breathers. Anyways, I'm just throwing that out there for
No,
people listening.
no, it's
I
so
was one of
true.
those people.
Everybody's degree at which they're dealing with something is so different. And so, but we all have stressors, right, that are happening on a daily basis. We just don't realize how they're adding up until one day, like you said, everybody's always waiting for the big moment. Well, don't.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
not try to not make that big moment ever happen if you
totally.
can, right? Some of it is not in our control. At times things do happen and we know that, but such is life. So on the food side, what we're thinking, where we are with coaching is we see that as some people really want one of it. They want they want all three, they want two. So we're going to
Mm,
make that a little bit more a la carte as we think about the future of the product. But the three pillars that you get access to will be the nutrition pillar. So let's talk about that one. We have a coach today on Compass. I don't know if you've worked with Ashley, but she is
yes,
amazing. And
phenomenal.
she's so good. And I anytime she gives advice or she shows me how to do something, like suddenly I feel like oh yeah, I got this now, right?
Yeah.
I don't walk away intimidated by it. And to be honest,
No.
sometimes when I watch the blogs and stuff, I get intimidated. I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to figure that out, right? But
Yes.
she makes it so much about what I can actually do for myself, and she takes the pressure off. It doesn't
Totally.
become this pressure thing, and that's what
Or
I love
fear,
about it.
or I
Yeah,
say this is like my term. I call it medium crunchy because I'm crunchy and holistic and all these things. But there's like this fine line. Like when someone says, like, be gluten free or you're gonna die. I'm like, you lost me. I can't. I like.
yeah,
I have to have it be like where it's tangible. And I mean, sometimes if that works for you, great. But I'm speaking for myself. I'm like, I need someone who just makes it calm and realistic
yeah.
and
No.
takes the fear out of it and takes the stress out of it. And she does that. You need
Yeah,
like
so her
10
model is not one
athletes
size
per.
fits all. So to your
Yes,
example, if someone's super gluten free, that might be okay. And she's able to work with you that way. But if somebody isn't and they need to be a little bit more in the middle, she's able to do that. So
totally.
and her advice has always been spot on. Like the things she, tells me, like and it's so funny. I'll say to her, I really want to start increasing this, right? And she's like, you should just get some protein in the morning before you do anything. Okay. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that's so hard. I'm so used to just like grabbing my coffee and kind of going. And she's like, no,
Yeah.
try. And she's like, okay, I'm going to send you something that makes it super simple and it's yummy. Like it won't taste bad. And I was like, okay, because
Okay.
I'm a foodie. I'm like, I don't want it to taste bad. I
Yes.
can't eat the stuff, Some of the
Yes.
things are like, I'm not eating that. Like when some of the startups are selling you like powdered food and stuff, I'm like, I don't want that. I want real food. I want to
Yes.
see my potato and I want to see my, carrots. Like I want to see them. And so what I love about our pillar on nutrition is that she is able to go to the individual, which I really, really think. And by the way, you could say, hey, well, is that just Ashley? No, it's part of the how we think about the fit and DNA for what we're trying to do on the product as well. So
Hmm.
who we hire onto the product is just as important as they come with their, of course, their personality of everybody, that is up to the individual, but the ethos of don't make food a stressful thing. And I think that's what Ashley practices. And I think food as
Yes.
medicine, when you hear that term, it to me, it also has a little bit of a weird branding because I don't want to think about it as medicine either. I just want to think about it as something that we do in a healthy way. And how do
Totally.
you eat to your most healthiest version that you possibly can do based on your likes, dislikes?
Hmm.
How do we make that not a stressful, like, meal prepping and the bowls are there? And I'm like, I can't do it, but I'm super impressed by all the people who can. And we have to realize that there's a lot of the population that can't do it. And
Hmm.
so for us, we are treating that nutrition pillar with the, she has the, you have to have the knowledge. What are the right foods, of course, how to really think about that. The fact that the nutritionist sees and can interpret and work with the clinician on what your blood work showed is even more impactful. It's not just a nutritionist stepping outside of that I'm going to go work with to say, let me eat better. No, this one is paired up. And what's really great is that clinical team with the coaches, they work together. They talk, they get together and they talk about Kathy. They say, here's what I've been telling Kathy, what's been happening with her on this side of the spectrum. What should I be adjusting based on what I'm learning now about her? And
Hmm.
so I think that makes it super unique. And it's not just like, food is medicine. It's really this integration of an intersection where nutrition is so important to that other part of the narrative. And so nutrition is one, exercise, of course, and like I said, the mindfulness, mental side, mental well-being side of the fence, and that portion, we're really pressure testing and focusing on sleep as
Mm.
a part of that. And how do
Which
we
is
help?
so overlooked. People ask me all the time, they're like, how do you get so much done in a day pregnant with two kids? I was like, I sleep 8 to 9 hours a night. It's a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
It's just, if you ask me to hang out or do something past this time, it's enough. Like, it's just so, that's what I prioritize, because if I don't, everything else goes downhill
Yeah.
for me.
Well, I love that word that you said, non-negotiable. Like you have to start having some boundaries, right? If it's really important to you and you have children and your life shifts, right? Like when I didn't have my littles and I had my girlfriends and, whatever, that was a different era and it was a beautiful era. And now
Mhm.
I still have my girlfriends, but the things I'm willing to do now look a lot different because yes, to
Totally.
your point, I want to be around for as long as I can. Like I think about
Mhm.
this all the time and I don't know, maybe I'm getting older and I think about it even more now. I don't know what's happening, but I want to be around as long as I can and as healthy as I can because I want to see that. I want to be around for that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
now you do have to have some non-negotiables. So I love that you're doing that for sleep. I think it's so incredibly important.
People kind of are like, "Really? That's it?" I'm like, "Trust me. If I don't get my sleep, I'm just not I don't show up great. I'm cranky, I'm unhappy, I'm not good to the kids." It's just like a whole layered thing, and once I figured that out, it just truly became a non-negotiable for me. I'm sure I mean, of course, there's, like, flexibility, for special occasions, but generally speaking, it's like, "This is my bedtime routine. I
Yeah,
get
your
in bed."
80-20 rule, right?
Exactly.
80% has
And
to be
people
this.
kinda look over that, but to your point, and I'm 33, but I do look at my mom, and my mom is very healthy and fit and active, and I see how she interacts with my children, and I think, "I wanna be that." I don't wanna be a
Yeah.
grandma who I honestly don't wanna be even like a mom who's like, "Oh, my back hurts, so I can't do XYZ," or whatever, and I think it does become a little more for me at least, it became more important to think this way and think longevity and think proactive and preventative once I had kids because I'm like, I need to be able to show up for them. Like if they are
Yeah.
18 and they say, "Mom, we want to go hike," I want to be able to go do that with
Yeah.
them. I don't want to say, "Oh, my, whatever ailment, my knees or hips or whatever." So I think it does having I mean, for me, having kids was really when I started to laser focus on
Yeah.
what is it to be proactive and preventative and take a more lifestyle and longevity approach to my health and well-being. And I think it's important. I wanted to say back to the nutrition piece, kind of to all of it, to nutrition, exercise, and the mental aspect. I know that a lot of people listening, a lot of people who follow me or kind of in my community are, I'm just going to say, anti-doctor. And I think the reason being is because they think of doctor as you're going to give me an antibiotic and I'm going to go home. You're going to give me a pill and I'm going to go home. And so I think it's important, and why I wanted to touch on the nutrition piece and all kind of like the different facets of Hoag Compass is I think it's very unique in that you could be a person who is totally okay with like, hey, give me XYZ prescriptions and I'll take them. You could be a person who's kind of in the middle where you're like, I like to lead with lifestyle change, but if I need to take something, or you could be a person who's like, I want to go as, lifestyle approach as possible and then see what happens kind of a thing. Like I think you can kind of be anywhere in the anywhere kind of like in your journey of wellness and health and kind of how you view it. And for me personally, I think that there's a place for somebody within Hoag Compass, and maybe you have different thoughts, but I do feel like right now on social media, everything's like very bucketized. Like, do you go to a traditional doctor, or do you go to like some voodoo doctor, or do you go to like, you know what I mean? And so for me, when I joined Compass, I thought, wow, this kind of has a place for everybody, wherever you are in your journey of health and wellness. There's kind of something for you. I don't know. Does that make sense to
No,
like?
yeah, 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 absolutely. And I think, one of the debunks that I had coming into healthcare was when you're outside looking in, I had very similar thoughts. I'm like, I'm only showing up to the doctor if I don't feel well, right? I'm only going there either it was like have the baby or you kind of wake up. No one who wakes up, right? And I think a patient had written a letter once to us and was saying that, it was a good letter, but it started with no one wakes up thinking, I want to go to the hospital today. Because that's been ingrained what it represents for decades now.
Mhm.
It's never something that someone thinks about as, oh, in order for me to stay healthy, if nothing's wrong with me and I just want to stay healthy, that's where I go. And even as healthcare has done more things where they have health centers and things like that, it still had this wrapper to you. You said this
Mhm.
in the beginning of our conversation of sick care, right? And I think a lot of it is stems from a lot of things that have been, people's experience. Yeah, there is, you go there when you're sick. So the system is designed, really well designed for sick, right? Not very well designed for preventative. And even when you think about, your insurance, right? Your medical insurance, the
Mm-hmm.
things they focus on covering are usually sick things. Like, you're not going to get your nutrition um, coaching and counseling covered through your insurance. But
Yeah.
isn't that wild? Like, why
That's
not?
crazy.
That's
Yeah.
crazy to me, right? But all this stuff is systematic and it's there. And I didn't have a really good comprehension of it when I was sitting on the outside. It's kind of like you kind of know, but you don't know until you're in it. And the reason we got even more brutally awake about it is as we tried to build product, right? And we want these products to have all these things. And we said, this is what healthcare should feel like for people. It shouldn't just be, oh, I broke a bone. Now let me go to the doctor. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, right? And the more we got under the hood, we realized the whole system is designed around sick care. So how do you break that? So Compass stepping out of it, we truly do intend for the product to live in a space where we kind of also rebrand what your physician could be, right? The
Mm-hmm.
physician doesn't have to just be, and there's a lot of physicians coming up, right, that are talking about these things, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And they're being trained a bit differently and they're taking different types of education. Some of the physicians, they're getting certifications in nutrition and diet and weight loss and sugar management and all of that stuff, which is different. And so, what I think about our product and this that we've done here at Hoag, there's going to be people that just want the traditional experience and it's okay, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that,
Yep.
and that has its own efficacy and its own value, in my opinion. But then there are a bunch of people that have the appetite and willingness to think about healthcare a bit differently as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're saying from a Hoag healthcare system standpoint is we want to ensure that there's model to meet the varying needs. And I do think, to your point, Compass is being built to meet a very different customer type, right?
Yep.
They
Yeah.
are much more into the wellness narrative. They're much more into prevention. They're much more into thinking like, yeah, nothing's wrong with me now. But instead of downloading Noom, I'm going to go download this and I'm going to have a doctor that's willing to talk to me when I don't want to just take, antibiotics for the third time. Like,
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
there's room for that. And then sometimes you do need the doctor to say, maybe you do need something, right? And
Yeah.
and there's that. But I do feel like this is a middle ground. Now, do I think if you're on the extreme end and you're really only homeopathic, probably not the right program, I would say. But I think if you're in that middle where you want to make sure that that's not the crutch, like going to the pill, going to the world that we think it is, I think Compass could definitely play that role.
Yeah. I totally agree. Well, thank you so much. This was incredible. I learned so much and I have been a part of Hoag for a long time. So I so appreciate you. And also, Nona, don't forget about Nona. I'll put some links to the show notes. I'll put a link for Hoag Compass and I'm sure there's a link for Nona.
Yeah, and I'll send it to you so that you have it,
Perfect. Yes, I'll put those
and
in the
make it
show notes
easy
for
for
anyone
you.
listening. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much. This was incredible. I really appreciate all the insightful information. So now people hear it from you even deeper. I feel like now people
Yeah,
are really going to be bought in on Hoag Compass. I'm always shouting from the mountaintop, like, go do it. It's the best thing
yeah,
ever. So
absolutely. And
yeah, I
I'll probably be back out to San Clemente because it's so beautiful out there.
yes.
We are doing our women's summit for the Hoag Health Center that is coming to San Clemente in July.
Yep.
Uh, I think opening day is going to be July 14th. So
Okay.
watch out
Very
for that.
exciting.
But we're going to be doing our women's summit, I think, April
April
3rd.
3rd.
And so I'll be out there and hopefully, I know you're in baby uh,
You know what? I
golden
think that
spout.
it's going to be my breakout, one of my one breakout day. I've gotten clear to do a couple of things. The baby shower is one of them, and I think that will be the other one.
All right.
So
Well, if I
I'll
don't
see
see you,
you
I know
there.
why. But if I do, we'll get to do a smoothie toast or something
Absolutely.
at the
Love
event. But
it.
thank you so much for having me. It was fun just chatting about that. I find myself really sitting down and thinking about the journey. So it's always nice to do that sometimes.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I could sit and talk about this stuff all day. So I could geek out about this stuff.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. I really
Of
appreciate it.
course. Thank you.